Hi wood folk, my name is the Goblin, and today I'm going to be giving you 10 tips that shall improve your skill at playing a Shaman. Just quickly though, I'd like to thank Oh No It's Fell, that's his name, on Patreon for becoming my first Patreon. Basically, you are a true diamond. Anyway, these tips can be little tricks to increase your healing or DPS, or really useful macros, or simply a few things that you could do to improve your quality of life while playing a Shaman. I'll also be giving you little pieces of information that I think you may, overlooked about Shamans. But anyway, let's jump in. My first tip will give your Shaman one of the best speed buffs in the game without using a mount. This simple macro here, which shall also be in the description, all the macros in the video mentioned will be in the description. Basically, the Ghost Wolf speed increase also stacks with Spirit Walk, so I just thought why not put them together in the same macro, to save time. The only problem with this macro is the fact that if you're already in Ghost Wolf form, then it will pop you out of Ghost Wolf, but the simple way around this is to pop the macro twice very quickly and it's happy days. My next trick is how to basically get a SLOWFALL as a Shaman with Elementals or Restorations, Gust of Wind, or Enhancements Feral Wolf. The Elemental, the Gust of Wind spell works a lot better than the Feral Wolf charge thing, so yeah. Once you're going, what you're going to do basically is you're going to use Gust of Wind like a warrior uses Heroic Leap. Simply before you going to hit the ground, pop the spell, and the game will act like you're falling from where you basically popped the spell, instead of the huge cliff that you just jumped off. So you'll take less fall damage, if none at all, which is always useful for getting around the world. For enhancement, you can do this, but you can only do it when there's a mob near the ground. So be careful and kind of calculate whether you can actually charge to that mob before you hit the ground. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So thirdly, I'm going to talk about a very overlooked spell, and that is FARSIGHT, which has many useful uses that people don't fully take advantage of. For instance, I was using it the other day to find that wolf boss that wanders around the field in the Halls of Valor dungeon, which obviously saved a lot of time. That was before I discovered that you can just track him, but oh well. It's also very useful to find certain mobs around the world that you can kill for quests. Since sometimes you're looking on the map, you're at the correct location, but the quest mob isn't there, and it's probably because they're either underground or above you in some kind of building. And this is the perfect opportunity to use FARSIGHT to save yourself some time, so you don't end up going the wrong way. You can also use it in normal battlegrounds, but not rated ones, unfortunately. It's important to note that while you are in FARSIGHT vision mode, you can also cast FARSIGHT again to go even further. You could literally just travel the entire map just by using FARSIGHT, and it's pretty fun. And now let's talk about another macro called a Mouseover existing macro. That's what I call it anyway, for lack of a better name. Which, when you cast normally at a target, then it will cast the ability or spell at your target. But if you have a Mouseover, like literally if that Mouseover exists, then it will cast a spell at that Mouseover target instead. It's very simple, and you won't need two different macros for the same ability, because some people obviously have a Mouseover macro and then the normal ability, but this basically makes it, jumbles it all into one. This kind of macro should be used basically with every single one of your abilities that can be cast at another person, or pretty much for every single class. But you may be thinking, there's not much point in using it for melee abilities, but actually there are some extremely these macros are extremely useful for taking down adds which don't have a lot of health, because you won't even have to switch from your primary target, which means you generally just kill adds a lot faster since you don't have to faff around switching targets. Obviously for the adds which take a long time to kill, then you probably should switch target fully, but a Mouseover Feral Lunge onto an ad, is going to save you some time and get you there faster. It's also very useful for when you need to pop Hex on an ad, since you won't even need to switch target. Just hover over the mob's model, cast Hex, and then it's as simple as that. Fifthly, I'm going to give you a bit of knowledge about Crash Lightning and its Crashing Storm talent effect, since it's important to note that when you cast it, it will not appear on the ground near the mob. It will appear a little in front of you, a little in front of your character. Which means remember to never use it at range and treat it as a melee ability, even though you can use it while mobs are not in melee range, which is a little weird, and I reckon it might be changed. Also, in order for Crash Lightning to become the best DPS option for AoE in single target DPS, in that talent option tree, then the mob must stay within the ground effect of Crash Lightning for the full duration, right? Which means never use it when the mob is about to move. Use it when the boss or whatever you are killing will stay for a good amount of time Otherwise, you're basically wasting Maelstrom power that you could spend on other things like Lava Lash and stuff. For number 6, I have another macro aimed at enhancement specifically. Obviously, it is important to use Flametongue and the Frostbrand buffs, and obviously keep those buffs up constantly. But you know, 2 separate keybinds for, you know, something that you're just going to use after each other, you know, in a row, 2 things after each other in a row, it seems a bit over top. It seems a bit unnecessary, which is why I'd recommend a simple cast sequence macro with a hefty reset, just in case the mob goes out of range in the middle of the sequence. The only reason why I would put a reset effect on the macro is because you don't want to use Flametongue and then follow up with Frostbrand, you know, but you can't use it because there's no Maelstrom power or something like that. You might get into that situation, probably won't. You could probably get away with, you know, without using a reset effect if you just prefer, but I just prefer using Frostbrand first every time, because if I switch onto an ad or something and I need to slow it, then I'll always be able to quickly, initially, with the Frostbrand, and I don't have to use Flametongue first and then Frostbrand, so yeah, that's why I prefer it. Next, I have another piece of information that you may have overlooked, and that is the simple fact that Boulder Fist or Rock Biter is actually not a melee ability, since it will work within 10 yards range between you and the mob. And this goes for Frostbrand and Flametongue, so remember, you can use those abilities, which is especially important to remember in PvP, since Flametongue and Frostbrand do some decent damage when you initially use them, and it's much better than, you know, using Lightning Bolt. So yeah, just remember that. Now I'm going to talk about one of the best raid utility spells in the game, and that is Windrush Totem. You need to learn that this ability is not a personal speed increase, and you shouldn't be using it just for yourself. Instead, you should be using it in a situation for when most of a raid has to move somewhere, whether that's to avoid damage or to go to a location in order to kill an ad. But remember, it is only, you know, only has about 10 yards of range, so be careful where you put it. Since you want to get the most use out of it, you don't want to like pop it somewhere, then you only really get the buff like once, because it does last for a long time and it will keep reapplying the buff to you. I mean, I like to put it a bit ahead of where the group is going to run, so the speed buff will last longer, since people will be in its aura for a little bit longer. For the second to last piece of advice, we're talking about a mechanic in the game commonly known as Pandemic, which was a passive ability in the game added to Affliction Warlock, but now it's pretty standard across the board. It's basically about, you know, it's basically about dots, but in our case it's about personal buffs. Basically, when a Warlock you know, has a dot on the target and then casts the same dot again, the duration won't reset to its initial duration that you know, of the spell, but the duration will increase over the initial duration up to about 30% of its current duration, something like that. So if you pop Flametongue before the buff falls off, then your duration will go up to 20 seconds instead of like 15 seconds. But I'm not going to say take advantage over this, you know, all the time, but it will be useful in certain situations, like when you're out of melee range and when you're waiting for Storm Strike to become available, and also a method to prevent yourself from capping on runic power. So, you know, just some little something to be aware of. The last thing I'm going to talk about is simply synergy. What I mean by that is that there are some very useful Shaman abilities that cross over the specs, like Wind Shear, Purge and Cleanse Spirit, and my tip for you is to bloody use them and chip in a bit. You know, if you're a healer, then don't just stand there and heal. Do some interrupts, do some purges, and if you don't need to save mana, you know, only use them, obviously, because Purge does cost a lot of mana, so don't just spam Purge, you know, because you need to save your mana, but, you know, fill in when it's needed. And obviously, as a DPS, then do some dispelling whenever you can, since it's not just, you know, it's simple, it's not that difficult. You've got a very reliable method to remove curses, so get stuck in. So overall, don't neglect those extra abilities, because, you know, active use of those abilities is the difference between a pro player and a new player, I'd say. But anyway, lads, that's it for now. Be sure to check out the video link in the description for similar videos and more class tips. My name is the Metagoblin, and until my next video, ciao.